Hey guys, welcome back to WND Tech. Thank you for sticking with us while we've had a rather long extended break, but we're going to be back at it making content for you guys because it's kind of fun and we kind of need to get on and do stuff. So what we're looking at today is a pure power 11 FM from BeQuiet right after this. Alright, so it's going to be a bit of a quick video. We're just going to give you an unboxing and kind of overview of the BeQuiet Pure Power 11 FM. Now this one is, they've already got a Pure Power 11 power supply. They've got a whole range of wattage of power supplies out, but this is the FM, which stands for?
Fully module.
Thank you! Sorry, I should have told you I was going to do that. And this comes as BeQuiet are working on their No Noise Week, which explains to you how noise is perceived by the human ear. And if you want to learn more, go and check out BeQuiet on their website. Of course, we'll put links to this and BeQuiet in the links down below. Just go and check that out when you finish watching this one. But for those that want to see what this one's all about, let's get this thing unboxed, shall we? BeQuiet have sent over, as part of our charity PC build, they sent us two of these, the Pure Power 11 FM. It's obviously one of their Pure fans. I think it is. We'll double check what type of fan they've actually supplied with this. It's not an RGB fan, so it's pure. It's literally purely what you see here. It's a black fan. There's no fancy RGB effects. If you're not into RGB, obviously you can normally turn those off. But anyway, let's just have a quick look on the outside before we go inside. All right, so as we look at the power requirements here, well, not power requirements, but the specifications of what it can actually give you in terms of power output. 3.3 volt and 5 volt is up to 20 amps there. As you can see, it's got two rails, and we'll get to the 12 volt rail in a minute. 120 watts on those. You will never reach 120 watts unless you've got a hell load of hard drives and things like that, or RGB lights maybe, but you'll never reach 120 watts on those two voltages there. You've got two 12 volt rails on this one, which can supply up to 36 amps of power with a total combined through between both rails of 750 watts. Now this is an 80 plus gold. Now that doesn't really mean a lot, but what it does mean is that it can supply a sort of a more stable power at around a 91% load. So anything over that, it's a little bit unstable, but we're not going into a deep dive on the power supply and its thermal cutouts and things like other channels like Gamers Nexus do, because we don't have the equipment to do that and we're not qualified in any way, shape or form to do those type of things. So we're going to leave all that stuff to Gamers Nexus because they're best at it. What we're just going to focus on is what this thing looks like and what cables it comes with, because that's kind of important too. So let's flip this around and open it up, see what it actually looks like. Now, as I mentioned before, it is the FM variant. So the FM stands for, as we've already discovered, fully modular. So you only need to plug in the cables that you need to plug in. We've got the user manual here. So for this range of power supplies, the Pure Power 11 FM series, they do 750 watt, which is what we have here, 650 watt and 550 watt there. So if you're running an older GPU, maybe you can get away with one of these. But if you're using a 30 series graphics card, or at least up to a 3070 anyway, you need the 750 watt because that is the recommended power supply wattage for a 3070 or for up to a 3070 Ti. Anything over that, you need a bit more powerful power supply. All right, cool. So let's see what the cables are you get in the box. So obviously you get the standard kettle lead, we call it here in the UK kettle lead, because they used to be used on kettles, believe it or not, hence the name kettle lead. I don't know if it's what you call it in America, but that's what we call it over here. And you get a European style plug there as well for that market, but we don't need that. All right, so we've got this bag out. Let's open it up and see what connectors we get inside. Obviously, you're going to get the usual things you see, like the 24-pin ATX power connector there, and that kind of connects on to that to make the 24 pins up. Always good to have that on because you kind of need it. Also, you get the 8-pin CPU power, the supplementary power there that you will need for pretty much all CPUs these days. Motherboard, power supply connector there. Very nice. We'll open these up, see how long they are as well in a moment, just so you know what kind of length you've got to play with here. But let's just go through what you've got at the moment. You've got PCIe power there, so that'll be for graphics card. So you've got up to 8 pins with this bit kind of hanging off. I really wish that this wasn't a thing, because if you only need the 6-pin, you've got to kind of tuck this one out of the way, and it's not too bad if you can kind of, if you're trying to make your cables nice in your PC, if you can kind of cable tie it that way and hide it out of the way so you can't see behind it. But yeah, I don't know what the solution is to that, because obviously some graphics cards need 8, some need 6. We've got another CPU supplementary power here for, well, another one. So we've actually got 2 supplementary CPU power connectors there. Interesting. As you'd expect, we've got the old standard of Molex cable. They still give you a couple connections for that, because some RGB controllers and fan hubs and things will still use that type of connector. I don't agree with that. I think they should do away with that. But for those that are upgrading an older PC that still have something that uses those, it's very important that you have at least a couple of those, which you do with this power supply. So you've got that if you're upgrading or you're in the process of upgrading. And obviously that plugs into the power supply, and then you've got a couple of SATA, you've got 2 SATA connections on there for SSDs. And then you've got a old style floppy drive connector there, which not many people use floppy drives anymore, but it's there. But there are also needs for things like peripherals, fan hubs, maybe pumps will use that as well. I don't know. I don't have use for these anymore, but I'm sure some of you guys will probably still use.
Old style USB 3.0 connections still use that.
Really?
The early edition.
So may have a use for that, but some older systems probably definitely would need that. But yeah, most modern systems probably wouldn't even make use of that connector, but it used to be used for floppy drives, if you know what they are. If not, Google it.
If you know what they are, send us a fax.
Yes, send us a fax on the number down below. Okay, so this one we've got pure nothingness in the way of Molex here. We've just got SATA connections. So you've got 3 SATA connections from this one connection here. Very nice to see. And you've got a load more SATA connections. Again, mixed in, no, these are just SATA connections by the looks of it. So you've got power supply connector there, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 SATA connections on there. So you can put a 10-ton of hard drives in this if you actually wanted to. And the final cable is another PCIe cable for your graphics card. See, that one goes into the power supply, and then you've got the 6-pin plus the 2 to make it 8 for your GPU. And that is that one. All right guys, so we're going to measure the cables and let you know how long they are. So we've got a little measuring thing on our Acertech, keyboard and mouse mat here, and you can just about see it. It's not very bright printed, but we're going to try and stretch it out as far as we can roughly. And I can't see, so this one is about 58, it's probably about 59 if I stretch this out completely. About 58 centimeters long for the ATX 12 volt power cable there. And let's just have a look at these, because cable length is also very important as well, depending on what type of build you're doing. You may need extensions if these are not going to be long enough, but I reached out to BeQuiet about another build that we're working on, just to see if they would recommend any cable extensions, or if they could supply some for a project that we're working on. They don't supply them, they don't have cable extensions, but they basically said if the cable extension you're working with says it will work with any power supply, then it most likely will. So that was their word on that. So it's a shame, because it would be quite nice to get different kind of cables. But this one here, this is the supplementary CPU power connector, and this one is even longer at 64 centimeters long for the CPU supplementary power. Obviously there's 2 of these and they're both the same length, As we move on to the MOLET connector and the cable that has the 2 SATA connections on and the floppy drive or accessory connector on, this one is actually off the mat. I can't measure it because the measuring mat is not big enough, but this mat is 800 millimeters wide, that's 80 centimeters wide, and it's almost the same length as an 800 millimeter or 80 centimeter mouse pad. So that kind of gives you an idea of how long that cable is. And it's probably a similar size to most of the other cables that we have in here. So it's quite a good size. Right, as we move on to the connector for the SATA, the one with the 4 SATA connections on, it's again off the scale of this mouse mat, so it's actually longer than 80 centimeters long. It's probably more like 90 centimeters long for the cable there. So the last cable we're going to measure is the PCIe power, because the other SATA cable is the same length, about 90 centimeters long. And this is PCIe power. This is one I always think it's difficult to get the size right, but we're going to measure it anyway. So this one here is 50 about, because this is only a rough measurement I've got here, it's about 54 centimeters long. So the final thing we're going to look at is the Pure Power 11 FM power supply itself, and as you can see, it's pretty standard. There's nothing really fancy on it. You've got which is what I quite like here actually. If your power supply is with fan facing up in the tower, the BeQuiet logo, there isn't a sticker on it, but it does mean if you're mounting it the other way around or in a different case that requires it to be this way round, you're going to get a black sticker. It's not too intrusive, but if you don't like stickers on there, you could always pull that off and stick it elsewhere where it's not visible, maybe on top, or just stick it in the box if you need to send it back. But if not, leave that on there. It's not too bad. It shows all the ratings of the power output on there as we showed you earlier. So on the back we've got literally that, a power button and the kettle lead connector there with a lot of airflow there as well. One thing I quite like about these is there's a lot of space between each connector here. Some are quite close together. It's really hard to get in there once you've got them all in, once you've got them all plugged in, but as with any modular power supply, you only need to plug in the ones you need to use. Generally, you only need that one, and then whatever peripherals you're going to use. If you're using a graphics card, you'll probably use 1, maybe 2 of those if you want to split the load on that. But otherwise, you'll just need that one, maybe 1 or 2 of these for hard drives and things, unless you're using NVMe, and both of those. So you'll have a couple of things spare, but it's nice that they've labeled everything out so you know what goes where. And you can't plug them in the wrong way around, so you don't need to worry about that. They literally go in one direction. Okay, so we're going to fire this thing up now and just see what kind of noise we can expect. Now, this might be a little bit tricky. What I need to do is get an adapter, plug in the 12-volt power connector there, and just see what kind of noise levels we will get on idle. Obviously, this isn't going to have load on it, but at least you'll see, you know, if the fan spins up. No, that's the wrong connector. So we need both of these connected. Connect the motherboard connector the correct way around, like so. Very easy to do. And obviously all the cables are black, so it should fit with most builds quite nicely there. You need to plug this one in to here. It's a bit tight, so you also need to plug in this connector here after you've plugged in your 24 pin your power connector there, and this is the extra pins for the 24 pin power connector. You need to plug both of those in, and then that's for your supplementary CPU power there. Not as I described earlier, that these were both supplementary. One is for the 88 to 12 volt power. What we're going to do, we're going to plug an adapter in on the end of this and try our very best. We don't have really good recording equipment for sound, but I'll try and put my lapel mic up to it just so you can kind of hear how noisy or not noisy it is. Hopefully, given the name BeQuiet, it should be pretty quiet. Who knows? We'll find out. Let's get the adapter. It spun up for a bit and then it went quiet. So that's idle. Did it click?
I heard a click.
Let's try that again. I don't know if this is, I'm sure it's not an issue and I'm sure it's designed to do this, but I think it might be the overpower protection kicking in or enabling itself when we turn it on. But I'm going to unplug my lapel mic and get it close. So I've unplugged my lapel mic, and apologies if you can hear my fingers rubbing across the mic, but I'll try my best. So we're going to turn the power supply off, and I want you guys to hear what we heard. Now, comment down below if you think it's the overpower protection and all those advanced circuitries that help protect your power supply from exploding like a lot of the Gigabyte ones have recently. But it's not something I've heard on a power supply before, but then we've not actually noise tested a power supply before. So let's listen to this a minute and see what you think, guys. So did you hear that click? I think it's to do with the overpower protection and all those kind of circuits kicking in. Probably some kind of relay. But if we shush now, this is the idle fan speed. I can barely hear it. I can barely hear it. I don't know if you can pick it up on the mic. Alright, so there we go. That was pretty quiet. Now if you put your ear up to it, the only noise you can hear is the actual airflow. You can't hear, well, airflow. Fans make noise which creates airflow which creates noise. So you can barely hear it for a normal system. I mean, this is idle, guys. Don't forget, we're not under any load. This is idle at all. In fact, the fan won't even start ramping up until the power supply reaches about 60% load, which oddly enough is about where most PCs will sit when you're using them, you know, even using them like most normal PCs, not overclocked PCs obviously, but the average PC will run about 60% load when it's being used normally, even for games. So it's going to be a pretty quiet power supply. Now when it's up to about 100% load, according to the chart we're looking at now, I'll post it up on the screen, it reaches 24.8 decibels in noise. Now we can compare that to, they've got a little chart actually with what kind of things, what noises are at certain levels. Now I will post this on the screen too, so you can see it for yourself, but go and check it out with the links below with their low noise thing that they're doing at the moment. The Dark Power 12, which is a different model to this one, runs at 8 decibels, so it is a little bit quieter, but it doesn't tell me what load that's at. Probably idle, I would imagine, but I can't be sure about that one. The Dark Rock Pro 4, the TR4 version at 50% load is only 18 decibels. So this sits above that at maximum load, but lower than what they call 30 decibels, which is a YouTube studio with studio lights on. So it sits kind of halfway between, or just under, below that one, below the 30 decibels mark. But even 30 decibels is, you can't hear that. It's not audible unless you've got some really good quality professional recording equipment, which we don't have. All we have is our lapel mics and our camera and phone mics that we're using here today. So that's about it, guys. It was just meant to be a quick overview video and showing you everything that's inside this power supply, how long the cables were, how quiet it was at idle. We are going to be building with this power supply later on, and we may just show you how noisy it is under load once we do benchmarking in those systems. But for today, that's the BeQuiet Pure Power 11 FM, and if you want it, go and check out the affiliate links down below. No extra cost to you, but it does help us out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.